Hi guys, in my previous video I presented how to create a custom limb featuring IK and FK switching. And Knifern asked if that setup worked with mirror options. And actually I've never really tried mirroring for character extensions, so this is what this new video is about. Starting from the same character here, I have a pretty simple setup. Just two chains of bones parented to the spine. So it's a bit similar to the wings I presented in this other video, but we just have bones for now. So we're going to set up two character extensions for these, left and right. Let's add each chain in its respective extension. Holding space, right click to select the entire chain. Now on each extension, I'm going to assign a reference object. And voluntarily, I'm going to do it the same way I showed in previous videos, which in this case would be to use the parent bone of each chain as the reference object. So in this case, those chains are attached to spine 03. Maybe yours are attached to pelvis or any other bone of the skeleton. So I'm going to use this spine 03 as the reference object for each character extension. So make sure your attached character is the correct character, make sure you have a reference object, and make sure you put all your objects in the extensions. In this case, it's like animating directly on the bones, which is not the perfect way to work, but it's a simple example. So both extensions are part of the character, but they are not set up to be mirrored yet. I'm going to quickly animate those chains through the timeline in body part, for example, like this. So I'm testing various poses just to check the different mirroring. So I'm twisting the first bone like so, and then I'm bending the second bone. So I can pick any of those poses, add them here, and then select the other extension, select the mirror option here on the pose control, and if I apply, nothing happens because they're not set up to be mirrored just yet. So how do we do that? In the character extension properties, you have this label. So each object in my character extension here, chain upper 01, 02, 03, they all have a label. And the reason why it doesn't mirror automatically with the other extension is because all those bones are not named the same, right? On one side I have 01_L for left, 02_L, etc. And on the other side, 01_R. So these don't match exactly, and the system isn't smart enough to just guess that they're, in the same order or anything like that. You have to specify it. So on the properties of the extension, for each object here, 01_L extension label, you can change that label. So in this case, I'm simply going to remove the _L for each of those, and you'll find the other objects underneath. So now 01_L correspond to just 01, and I'm simply going to do the same on the right side extension, removing the side suffix in this case. So basically you just want to make sure the object on one extension that you want to mirror with the other extension object has to have the same label. Finally, you want to tell the extension what mirror partner it should have. What is the other extension it should mirror with? So in this case, you want to select chain R, starting from chain left. It gives some warning, but if you rename your label properly, that doesn't matter. So if I'm on chain left, it tells me the mirror partner is chain right. And if I'm on chain right, it understood that the mirror partner is chain left. So now if I go to pose control and I try to reapply this pose on which my left chain is rotated on the other side with mirror active, it works. I can try with the other pose here, store it, and apply in mirror. It works like that as well. So pose controls work now, thanks to character extension labels for each object and mirror partner. Now with mirroring, there is a second option you want to be able to use. It's the mirror option on the character properties. So characters, select your character, go to properties, and under modifiers, mirror animation, you want to check that. So there's a video explaining how to use that, but simply bake your animation to skeleton and then bake it back to control rig. So just to see the animation I have, you can see it's just the left side that's being animated here. As always, I'm seeing left side from the character's point of view, so seen from the back, you know, it's the chain over the left shoulder over there. So we want to be able to mirror this animation so the entire timeline is applied to the other side. Because if you have a long take, obviously you can't just store a pose per frame and apply it frame by frame. So we're going to try that, and you'll see it's not going to work out of the box. So keep in mind right now, these chains are parented to spine 03. There's a certain offset from spine 03. Those bones have some frozen transforms, as we've seen in the custom limb video, degrees of freedom, rotation, pre-rotation. So on the bind pose here, they are a little bit rotated like that. And yeah, there's a certain translation offset. So before we apply the mirror, we're going to duplicate our take because it's a little buggy. That option won't work out of the box. And so I recommend doing several tests, like keeping your original take and testing on a second take. So let's go. Bake to skeleton, and with mirror animation active on our character, bake plot to control rig. So the character is always flipped around the y-axis, the yaw rotation, which is a little annoying. So you can select all your keys like that, and if you have a root control set up properly, you can rotate it. I'm going to use 45 degrees increments here. You can select all your keys in full body, rotate this, and then use move keys to rotate your entire timeline. So now we have our original take rotated a certain way, which match the mirrored take. Just have to flip again your root control by doing the same process again, but just in selection mode. So select your keys, rotate again, and do move keys. Okay, so we've mirrored our character. I don't see my chains anymore because they're part of the skeleton, so I need to display the skeleton again up there. Okay, so let's compare. This was our original take in which the left side is mirrored, and this is now a second take. Surprise, everything is messed up. Don't worry, we're going to fix that. But let's try to understand what went wrong. Well, it's kind of weird rotation here. On the original take we had, on the first frame we had 0, 0, 0. And on the second take we have those weird numbers here. And some values, like here 38, 38, 11, 13, 11, 13, match the pre-rotation. So it seems like it's not interpreting the pre-rotations correctly. And potentially it mirrors the translation in a strange way as well. The fix that I found is to use a parent group object. So instead of having those bones using spine 03 as the reference, because spine 03 is far from the first bone of the chain and it has a completely different, referential. Instead, using a null that is placed where the chain starts. So I'm going to place this null in the world here. I'm going to line it up with my first chain bone. I'm going to parent it to spine 03 just so it follows along. And I'm going to call it ref chain left like that. And copy paste it. Control C, Control V, reparent with X, hold and drag. And rename chain right. And obviously hold X, click and drag onto chain upper right. Over there, align, so it's on the other side. So I have a null on each side that matches the bind pose of the first bone of each chain. And I'm going to use that as a referential. So reference object, I'm now going to use this. Okay, it's telling me that any stored pose is broken now, which makes sense. So selecting the extension, shift select the object in the scene, and then drag and drop as the reference object. So the poses I stored before are now broken, so we have to store them again. So normally this didn't break the pose controls mirroring. Let's just check. Okay, I have this pose here. I'm gonna update it over there. I'm gonna apply it on the other side in body part. So this still works. Now let me duplicate my take. So this original one was without ref, or like rather spine 03 as ref. Now we'll do a second test where nulls are the ones used as ref. So plot to skeleton and plot again to control rig and display the skeleton in my case. Okay, everything broke. So that doesn't work as well. What we need to do is actually parent our bones to those objects. But since we've been working on the bones, we can't break the bones hierarchy because the bones hierarchy correspond to the skeletal hierarchy that might be used in your game engine, and you cannot break that. So we're going to have to use controllers to change a little bit that hierarchy. So just like in the previous video, I'm going to create markers that will correspond to the bone hierarchy using markers. So I'm going to line them up every time. Change the look and the color if I want. Marker settings, look. I like using stick, and I like making them yellow to match the FK control kind of visual convention. So I'm gonna Control C, Control V, line up to the other one. Control C, Control V, line up to the last one. Okay, parent them together. Rename, so schematic view with Control W. Chain 01 left, that's a controller. Okay, and I'm gonna parent this one to the null directly. Let's do the same for the other side. Control C, Control V, parent. And line up to the correct side. So on the first node, we don't need to set up any pre-rotation because the node is parented to a null that is on the same spot, so there's no delta between the first controller and its parent. That is a reminder from the previous video. But on the other ones, we want to enable DOF. So on all these, and transfer the local rotation into this. and then zero out the local rotation. And then I'm gonna add those controllers and the corresponding bones into my bone to control relation and control the bone relation, so the controllers can drive the bones when not using the import mode, and the bones control the controllers when using import mode. So just a reminder from the previous video. So in bone to control, the controllers are senders and the bones are receivers, and on control the bone it's the other way around. That way, on my mirror test base animation where I used to have the bones animated, I can just use import mode to bake that same animation onto the markers. But first I need to put those markers, those controllers, into the extensions. I can actually remove the bones from the extensions as well now. Detach. Detach. Just to be sure, I will update the stance pose on both sides. And don't forget, because we changed the objects in the list, before it was the bones, now it's the controls, our labels actually changed. They got reset to the name of the object. So we're just gonna remove the suffix one more time for each side. So basically we changed the setup so it now uses a second hierarchy of objects, and the advantage of doing that is that it can be parented to a null that is placed where the first controller of the chain starts. So I have still the last chain animated here. I'm going to duplicate my take just to be sure. Plot to skeleton and plot again the control rig. And now the right side is animated. So mirroring just worked. Finally, all we had to do is make sure we use a second set of objects starting from that reference node and using that reference node as a reference object and making sure our labels are still correct. Now, I just want to warn you, there's something you don't want to do. I don't know why it doesn't work, but if you parent your FK controllers or your nulls directly to one of the FK controllers of human IK, like here, I would be tempted to parent those to spine 2, so all the controllers are within one hierarchy while keeping the bones in a separate hierarchy. There is a strange bug if you do that, and that's very unfortunate. But here you can see I have this animation working just fine with the controls, but the chain is now parented to spine 3, but the chain is now parented to the FK controls directly. If I mirror this take, I get this broken pose. It kind of breaks the arms and the neck, basically anything that is attached to spine 2. I don't know why it messes up. I tried different things. I tried, instead of directly parenting to spine 2, parenting to the reference node, and then using a parent constraint for each side, for each null, to constrain the null to spine 2. Using snap all to maintain offsets, so same behavior. But the bug is still there, because despite it not being a true like parenting, it's confused. And that happens for any bone. If I parent my controls to the hips, the spine and the legs are going to get messed up. So there are only two ways of doing this properly, is either parenting the nulls to the skeleton like I did in the first place, but that kind of makes the skeleton hierarchy a little strange, but it's not necessarily a problem because you would only export the bones you need to export, and you don't export the controllers anyway when exporting your animation. And this is just adding extra branches to your skeleton hierarchy instead of breaking it by inserting objects inside the hierarchy. So it's not really a problem, it's just not super elegant in terms of setup. So what you can do is keep it parented to the reference, just to keep all the controllers, under the same group, and use a parent constraint to constrain those nulls not to the spine 2 FK controller in this case, but constrain it to the bone that we parented it in the first place. So deactivate, unlock, select the bone as the parent instead of the corresponding FK control. Snap all, lock all. Now if I do the mirror again, it works. And my chest are following the spine. So very strange bug. I wish Autodesk fixed it. But there's a workaround, which is parenting your controller chains to the skeleton or parent constraining to the skeleton, but not directly parenting or parent constraining to any human IK controller. I hope this was a useful tutorial. Thank you for watching.